that's carrying, all that stuff. Oh, he can't stand and watch it. It drives him crazy. Hey, everybody. Welcome again to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. We were actually talking basketball off air, but we're going to talk about football tonight because basketball, that's over with. I mean, I know free agency starting, and the draft will be probably the next couple of weeks, I would imagine. But the Pelicans don't even have a pick.
Who cares?
Yeah, the Pelicans don't even have a pick, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. This is the mini camp edition because they had their first practice mini camp, and after Thursday, we don't have basketball. We don't have football until the end of July, and then it's really football season. We will talk about football all the way to the following February, hopefully, involving All Saints. Welcome tonight. My name is Alan Ulrich. I'm your host, and I'm here with my co-host, and I'm welcoming him tonight, Sean Williams. How you doing tonight, Sean?
Doing great, man. Doing great. As usual, Tuesday night, 8 o'clock. Do you know where your Hoodats are? And we are all present and accounted for. We want to thank you for joining us tonight on the Under the Dome podcast. A special shout out to all of those first-time listeners, first time to catch us live and in living color. Welcome, and we hope you make us your weekly stop from this point on. We want to invite you guys to join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central Time. You can subscribe to our show on iTunes and on YouTube. We always welcome new subscribers. I got a special announcement to make. July 17th, as we announced a couple of weeks ago, we will be airing our 2-year anniversary. Wow. That's a long time. 2-year anniversary show. And tonight I'm proud to announce that our very special guest will be Kyle Mosley from the site where Bob Rose writes. He's also Bob's co-host on the Bayou Blitz. We're really looking forward to that. We've never had Kyle on before. Let's see. Happy birthday. One of our good friends and most ardent and loyal followers, Mr. Ev Lyons, or well, no, I'm not going to announce his real name. I don't want to get in trouble. But Ev Lyons, yesterday was your birthday. We got a special birthday gift for you momentarily. But on Thursday, June the 14th, will be the birthday of our live chat security guard, Mr. Jerry Poor, and also my last child, Andrew, is going to turn 6. And Jerry, don't worry, man. I'm not going to tell him how you're going to turn. We'll just let that be me and you. We want to wish all of those people a very happy birthday. Now, Alan, you, as we start this conversation, we're doing our positional analysis, and this week we're going to cover on defense the cornerbacks, which we'll get to momentarily, but also we're covering the running backs. Mm-hmm. And I think that we should start there with our gift to Ev. I'm going to let you take over that.
Okay. A couple weeks ago, he and I had a chat offline, basically asking about, with Ingram's suspension, is this an opportunity for Alvin Kamara to become not only like a lead back, but to get the... You all right?
Yeah.
Okay. But not only to be a lead back, but to get, the opportunity to maybe hit the... I'm trying to find the exact question, how he had it phrased. Hang on. Yeah. Kind of like what happened with the the 49ers running back, Roger Craig, have 1,000 yards receiving, 1,000 yards rushing, be that 1,000 club. And we saw last year he got the 1,500, which was the first time with he and Ingram being the first time two running backs on the same team hit that mark. His basic question is, do I think that Alvin Kamara can become that feature back and become that guy who is both a 1,000-yard receiver and a 1,000-yard rusher? The long answer, or the short answer is no, I don't. But it's not because I don't think Alvin Kamara is capable of that. It's more, I don't think Sean Payton is going to do that with him. At the time when a player like Roger Craig was playing, Roger Craig was the back in the offense. He was all three downs. There wasn't the running back by committee approach. I think Kamara could handle the workload, but I don't think Sean Payton is going to use that kind of workload on him. I think it's going, because if you think about the 49ers in 1984, 85, when Roger Craig did this, their receiving corps was basically Jerry Rice and John Taylor. I believe the tight end, I think John Frank was still the tight end there. I don't think they had gone yet to
Brent Jones.
Brent Jones, thank you. Russ Francis kept coming to mind. It wasn't Russ Francis. But I don't think
Russ Francis was there earlier.
Yes, he was. He was there with the 81.
He was there for I think the first Super Bowl, and that was it.
Yep. Yeah, he was they brought him from the Bengals. He came from the Bengals. But anyway, and the Patriots too. I think he was with the Patriots for a while.
He was with the Patriots last before the 49ers.
Yep. So anyway, John Frank was the tight end who later became a doctor. And I can never find this footage. I want to find this footage so badly. John Madden did a Giants 49ers game. And I'll never forget when John Frank and Lawrence Taylor got into a blocking, I guess, war. John Madden covered it like it was a wrestling match because it ended up both of them on the ground and both of them were trying to pin each other. It was like Frank was on the ground on his back. He flipped over. He's got Lawrence Taylor on his back. And that's exactly how John Madden was calling this thing. It was the funniest thing watching the replay of it because that was vintage John Madden. That was when John Madden was at his best from about 82, 83 to about 89. That was peak John Madden. And especially when he was doing a Giants game, because, that's when he would do things like with the buckets. That is on YouTube. I have seen this with the buckets of ice water, where he said the mama bucket and the daddy bucket. They had a baby bucket, and he's got the arrows pointing to the baby bucket. It's a small bucket, that whole bit. So, I mean, that's when people really got to enjoy John Madden, and it was before the way Frank Caliendo parodies him, where he just kind of repeats himself. He wasn't like that. He was very, very emotional, and it was funny. It really was. So,
I think one of the greatest injustices in the National Football League is that John Madden is in the Hall of Fame as a broadcaster and not a coach.
He is, but he isn't. He's also recognized for being a coach. That's the thing. It took his broadcasting career to get him into the Hall of Fame, which was not right.
I look at a lot of them nowadays that you could say the very same thing about. Warren Sapp, Howie Long. Howie Long was good, but I didn't see the Hall of Fame career, but he was on Fox every Sunday, so he got his name out there. And the list goes on, and I take nothing away from these people, don't get me wrong, but the Hall of Fame is the elite of the elite.
Well, in the Hall of Fame, the unfortunately,
it's politics.
Yes, it is, and I've already gotten into a long drawn out argument far too long talking about Terrell Owens and his shenanigans and this obsession with first balloting, which I think is that is something. This whole thing about being a first ballot Hall of Famer is something that was manufactured by the media and has just taken off like wildfire on social media. It means nothing, but people look at being a quote-unquote first ballot Hall of Famer as being some sign of ultimate respect, as if there is a hall of even more fame. You know,
Yeah.
if you're a Hall of Famer, yeah, you had a career as a Hall of Famer, but if you are a first ballot Hall of Famer, you're a Hall of more Famer. You know, it's just it's irrelevant. Like I told somebody, I said, name for me every single member of the Hall of Fame who were first ballot guys. You can't, because you don't know. You don't know. I mean, you really don't know. Nowhere does it say in the Hall of Fame, and this guy was a first ballot member. You know, it doesn't say that. And because it doesn't matter. But people are obsessed with this stuff.
I just want to say for the record that, you know, let me back up a couple of days prior to his announcement the other day. I sincerely believed that his accomplishments on the field did warrant Terrell Owens an invitation to be in the Hall of Fame. Based on what he pulled the other day, I think that the Hall of Fame should rescind that invitation, move on to the next person on the list, and not even bat an eye in the process.
Well, you know, my joke about it is he had to make it one more time about him. There was no way he was going to share a stage or a spotlight with, I don't remember how many, I think there's 7 other guys or 7 other people, 7 other presenters. I don't remember how many people even get nominated in the Hall of Fame. Because I really don't watch the speeches. I don't watch any of that stuff. You know, I'll watch Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells did a fantastic speech. That's one of my favorite speeches. But it has to be somebody I really liked. Watch the speech. I mean, I watched Ricky Jackson's, and I watched and you know, Ricky Jackson's was a little bit of rambling, so it would fit real well in this show. Really, what Willie Rose's, you know, was good, and Morton's was somewhat amusing, but you know, for the most part, I don't pay attention to it. Okay. Here's the thing, though, and this is what I said. This is what Terrell Owens is going to miss out on by doing this. In the Hall of Fame, they play snippets of your speech, or they might play the whole speech. I don't know. But there's snippets of your speech, something that really kind of summarized the theme of your speech. Okay? And that point, that will be gone. That will not exist for him. Okay? Because he's not going to be there to give this. He might do some kind of LeBron James decision thing on ESPN whenever, and you have to watch it knowing Terrell Owens will probably pay-per-view, so he makes some money off of it. But regardless, it's an ego thing. You know, it really is. It's a humbling experience because, and I promise, Eve, we'll get back to your question. The thing that I take away most from the Hall of Fame when we see people who go to the Hall of Fame, they all say the same thing. That luncheon they go to prior to that evening speech, where you all have the gold jacket on, and you walk into a room and look, there's Joe Namath. Look, there's Joe Montana. Look, there's you know, I'm trying to think of an old player who's still alive. You know, John Madden. You know, there's there's the history of the NFL. Then you look at the people who are no longer with us, but you see their images on the wall. The people who built the league: George Halas, Tom Landry, Vince Lombardi. Yeah, the people who made, Pete Rozelle, the people who created the modern NFL that people enjoy, the founders of the league, and the players who came before you, that allowed you to make this game. Because, as people who know the history of the NFL know, at one time, NFL was considered the bastard stepchild of college football. College football was the purest game. Red Grange came out in 1927 and actually legitimized the NFL, but then it disappeared again. It wasn't until after World War II and in the late 50s, early 60s, right about the time of NFL films, that, the country became enamored with pro football, and pro football took the place of baseball as the number one sport in America. So, to not understand this, and because it took at the number one spot in the American consciousness of the premier sport in the country, that allowed television to start pouring money into the league, and Pete Rozelle's brilliant marketing of the league allowed all this stuff to happen that gave players like Terrell Owens and Drew Brees and Tom Brady and, all the people who are out today to make the hundreds of millions of dollars they were able to make. None of that would have happened if it wasn't for those people who sit behind them in the gold jackets when you get that speech. And for a guy who thinks the entire world revolves around him, that means nothing. So, that's I'm not, disgusted is not the right word. Embarrassed and disappointed, and more embarrassed than anything else, because I'm embarrassed he is going to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm embarrassed that he has done this to the Hall of Fame. I'm embarrassed that Terrell Owens doesn't get it, doesn't understand where he fits in the universe. And
exactly.
That's what embarrasses me. I just look at him and just shake my head, just knowing you don't get it, and you'll never get it. You just don't. And unfortunately, there are people who are going to look at Terrell Owens and think, yeah, stick it to the man, because you weren't first balloter. They disrespected you. No, they didn't. They didn't disrespect you, because if they disrespected him, he'd never be in the Hall of Fame. That's the difference.
Yeah.
This instant gratification, microwave mentality of come on. Let's 5 years up. Let's go. It's time. No, you don't get it.
It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't. And that's not the way the world is supposed to work.
He should be kneeling down and thanking God every night that he actually was afforded the opportunity to go at all, based on how his career went, based on how he conducted himself in the league. And he never played for the Saints. Why are we talking?
I know. I just think of players like, we were talking about John Madden earlier, how long he had to wait. How long did Ray Guy have to wait? Yeah, he's a punter, but you know what? He made the punt a weapon. How long Jerry Kramer is going in this year? It's been almost 50 years. Who holds the record for a non-quarterback, holds the record for the longest consecutive game starting streak. Brett Favre holds the record for the longest streak ever by a player, consecutive game streak. But for a defensive end, undersized, he never missed a game. Jim Marshall, he's not in the Hall of Fame. Not at all. Tied with Jason Taylor for most fumble recoveries by a defensive end. We're not talking, a linebacker or a cornerback or anything, a defensive end. There's so many of them. Ken Anderson. Ken Anderson is a quarterback who was completing near 70% of his passes. I think it was 1982, completed 70% of his passes. In the so-called dead ball era, he was completing close to 60% of his passes. I'm talking the top echelon quarterbacks, the Roger Staubachs, Terry Bradshaw's, Bob Greasy, Kenny Stabler, were lucky to complete about 50 to 55%. Ken Anderson was completing close to 60. He was the pioneer of the West Coast offense, and it taught Bill Walsh that not only will the system work, but if I get a head coaching job, I will make it work wherever I go, because Ken Anderson made it work. And he's not in the Hall of Fame. It's just, and again, Ken Anderson's 40-something years since he retired. So, there's a lot of players who feel Brian. Yeah, I like Brian's site. Red Right, 88, I think will forever. I think that's the right play call. The Mistake by the Lake. That play, unfortunately, is forever haunt him. But, I mean, the cardiac kid 70s, early 80s, it was hard to believe the Browns were actually fun to watch.
Well,
all right.
Today we had a visitor at camp on a tryout basis. A former Chief, former Bronco, Jamal Charles, and he's not by himself. Apparently, we're bringing not just Jamal Charles, but Terrence West, and a name that everyone is familiar with from recent years, Tim Hightower, back in town, getting a retread. What do you think of all this? And then I'll tell you what I think.
I think Ralph Marlboro said it best on Twitter. It's like you're playing fantasy football and all your running backs are on a bye. So you're desperately scanning the waiver wire, trying to find somebody who might carry you for a week. I mean, it's...
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, look, Jamal Charles, his knees are shot. You saw last year. It's a lot of Adrian Peterson over again, except not as healthy and not as productive. Tim Hightower, that back, kind of know what you're going to get out of him. It's something.
Hey. Did I lose
your generation? So, frozen? Hello? Am I frozen?
Hey. No, you're
good.
Am
I frozen? I'm good? Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I'm not right. This is putting cards in your Rolodex. You're checking these players out to see if they've got anything. Come first two preseason games, if none of your young kids doing anything for you, and B, you've got a set of backs now that you looked at in these OTAs, see what kind of shape they're in, and go, hey, you know what? I need a back now. Let me call. That's kind of what you're at right now. None of these. I will be surprised if they sign anybody. Going to camp with any of these guys in late August, maybe before week 1. You have to, but you really. This is just now. You're taking cars out, seriously buying one. How do you see this?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was discussing this earlier today with Bob, and I told him right now they're just doing their due diligence, doing their homework as a backup plan or just in case. They don't have to bring someone in for a tryout or a test drive as you're trying to prepare for the season or prepare for the next opponent in the season. I don't see them doing anything either. I watched all three of these guys play last year. There was nothing that stood out about any of the one that I liked the most of the three would be Tim Hightower. And as much as I love the guy, I think he's done. He's had a great career. I would love for him to prove me wrong, but Father Time is undefeated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I bring in. I don't think they will seriously bring in, because now we're talking about financing too. It's cheaper to bring in undrafted free agent rookies and playing who you got rather than bring in somebody expensive, a veteran. Even if you sign him for the minimum, it's just not worth. Boston Scott had showed some nice moves, and he showed a lot of potential as a kick returner. Did you hear this or not?
Not yet. I haven't. I've been completely blacked out from.
I was talking
from any.
What's that?
I've been completely apparently blacked out from any kind of updates or anything from training camp today.
No. Mark Ingram did come in, hold out, has nothing to do with his contract. And he said last year, so he went in better shape, get a little bit fast, become a better. Felt like he so be it, but he looked very good. He was in great shape. On?
Yes, sir. You're blinking in and out from time to time. I'm trying to.
I'm blinking in and out. Okay.
Danger, Will Robinson. Yeah. Anyway, let me ask you this. At least for the time being, all eyes seem to be firmly focused on Alvin Kamara as the next in line with the suspension of Mark Ingram. Can Alvin Kamara be that, at least for the first 4 games of the season while Ingram is out, can Kamara be that number 1 back?
That's what I was saying earlier when I was talking about Roger Craig before we got into the Hall of Fame discussion on football. I don't think Sean Payton's going to let him. I mean, where is in him, and I think they're afraid to give him too much of a workload because they want to count on him come December and January. Now, granted, we've already talked about a shot to be playing in December, January, late December, early January, have those games mean something. So I think, and that backs come in carries. So that goes back to Lyon's question. You know, Kamara has the potential to be that 1,000-yard receiver, 1,000-yard rusher, but we're not going to let him do it. We're going to keep his carries and his touches in the teens, not in the. We need to have touches in the mid-20s combined to get that 1,000-yard rushing, 1,000-yard receiving, and that would be the sign of being a lead back. And I just don't. It's not. Again, it's not that he's not capable of it. I just don't see Sean Payton doing that.
I agree. And, you know, if you look at it logistically speaking, he doesn't have to. The Saints don't have to. They are not limited to either Mark Ingram or Alvin Kamara. You've got Michael Thomas. You've got Ted Ginn. You've got this new crop of players coming in via the draft. You have all these other weapons that you will have at your disposal to use. There's no need to run the wheels off of Alvin Kamara in 4 weeks just because Mark Ingram isn't there. I don't think that it's going to be necessary to go to that sort of extreme.
Idea about the Saints being almost like an old one running back. He's out there like a Walter Payton. He's out there every down. The offense is built around him. You got that number Rice. He's going to catch all the passes. You know, that built to have multiple weapons and to attack you in multiple ways. Even if Alvin Kamara is not carrying the ball 20, 25 times a game, he's out there, but as a decoy or a distraction to clear something out for somebody else to make a play. And if you go back to 2009 and 2011, we were most effective as an offense when we had multiple weapons out there running and catching the ball. And I think that's what you have. 3 guys have 1,000 yards. That means more to Sean than having 1 guy have 1,000 yards or 1 guy having 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving. He wants to have near 1,000 yards, a quarterback over 5,000 yards. I mean, that's his idea of a diverse and great, and that's how you have to kind of look at the Saints. Because while this guy here, Michael Thomas, is probably the most talented ever had, and yes, to him, he will never be the primary number one offense. They are going to spread the ball around, and that's what Peyton likes. That's what Peyton does. His whole game plan is designed around training and manipulating them to do all the things he wants them to do. His offense's potential to score. Boy, I sure hope that.
I mean, you look at it in terms of black and white. Okay, just by the numbers, yeah, we had a quarterback that passed for 5,000 yards, had 2 receivers that received passes for 1,000 yards each, had a running back that ran for 1,000 yards. What was the bottom line result of that? A 7-9 season. Individual honors mean nothing in a team sport. You don't get to the Super Bowl by having your quarterback pass for 5,000 yards or your receiver catching for 1,000 yards. Or the only thing that gets you to the championship game is winning ball games.
Yeah. And the best is, like you heard in 2000, 2009. The defense didn't know who to sort around to so many different people. They don't know where it's coming next. The same look, same formation, but they're running different routes. What's the guy? The instance OTAs, and I don't think he was here today. But Mike Thomas, he said, has, and he wasn't there today, but hopefully he'll play tomorrow. Again, I said this earlier. He's just the most talented guy the Saints have ever had as a receiver. The Eric Martins and the Marcus Colstons and Danny Abramowitz and stuff like that. The guys who are like 1, 2, 3, and Joe, the guy do 1, 2, 4 in the top. Larry Fitzgerald, the Chris Carter, the Jared, the Terrell Owen, kind of Randy Moss, that kind of guy. I think Michael Thomas is one of those kind of receivers now, because they said watching him go one-on-one at Marshawn Lattimore has been the most enjoyable part of the OTAs and mini camps, because it's not just that he catches the ball, but the way he can sell his routes, the way he positions every sheer joy to what good he is. The ball doesn't touch the ground, It's just we've watched Drew Brees for 12 years, and people kind of become I don't want to say, but really don't appreciate how good he is and how accurate he is, and putting that ball where it is every time. And now you receiver who snatches it out the air. So now Drew doesn't have to be, he is going to be, but he doesn't have to be as accurate as he is. But the fact that he is, because you know, is going to catch the ball. If it's within a foot of him, that's we just haven't had that experience. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to experience it for 10 years like we did with Marcus Colston. Although Colston put the ball, did drop a few passes. So it's watching, Thomas build his resume like you saw Drew Brees build his resume, as I wish I would be able to see that with Brees and Thomas the way we saw Brees and Colston.
Yeah. I agree. I'm afraid that when Thomas gets to be as great as he can be, it's unfortunately going to be when Drew decides to hang it up.
Yeah, but I think they're going to. Not only do I think that they're going to.
What I'm saying is, I don't think that it's going to be possible to see that Montana, Jerry Rice. Let's see who else.
Well, actually, Montana and Rice only played together for 4 years, 85 to 89, because he was knocked out. Well, they played in 1990 that one too, because he was actually knocked out of the playoff. Was it? No, he wasn't. I'm sorry. No, he didn't play the 1990 season. That was the season. Oh man, I have to go back and look. The first Buffalo Super Bowl. And that was, it was 1990 playoff, and they crushed Montana and he
Leonard
never,
Marshall.
yes, second game again. So yeah, so it was 6 seasons. It was 85 to 90. Um, yeah, that Bryce and Montana were Young and Montana were together longer than Montana. Yeah, that's going to be the key. Who is quarterback? But your guy for the future. That'll be going forward. How Thomas progresses once that happens.
Okay. Okay. Going to the other side of the ball. This week we're looking at cornerbacks. Who would you look at as going to be the key cornerback going into 2018? You may be surprised at my choice.
That's not named Lattimore. Ken Crawley. I mean, honestly, here it is. Just like we talked about Michael Thomas, I think Ken Crawley is that elite cornerback. I really think, barring injury and barring any kind of setback, which I can't see happening, I think Lattimore is going to be, kind of cornerback. I think he just builds on his reputation, builds on his career. Going up against Michael Thomas and Drew Brees can only make him better. So that's why I don't have him. I barring injury, I see him playing at a Pro Bowl level. Him yes, bottom of the list. Elite cornerback that teams are like, man, just don't throw it his direction. And Crawley, and to me, Crawley he showed growth, obviously, from his first year as an undrafted free agent to this year. He's going to be the guy after. And, we hear about Natrell Jameson, the rookie draft pick. We've got Patrick Robertson. Who knows what you have at P.J. Williams? You've got, Arthur Millette, who was on our show. I think the key his job and take that next step forward.
Well, my choice, I guess, is it's probably obvious is Ken Crawley as well. You go back to the year that we signed him as an undrafted free agent, and then someone basically walked into the cornerback room with a automatic weapon and mowed down everyone all the way up to Ken Crawley. He was thrown into the fire and had to either sink or swim. And he took his lumps early. And last year you saw the benefit of that with the way that he played, as you alluded to, going into going up against Marshawn Lattimore. Your quarterback thinks, okay, I can't throw it over there. I'm going to have to go over here. So that puts basically a lion's share of the pressure not on Lattimore, but on Crawley. It's up to him to rise to the occasion, and he's actually going to have to be more solid than Lattimore is. Now, sooner or later, you can't continuously try Crawley. You have to end up going to Lattimore, and that's where you pay. I think that the key cornerback going into this season is going to have to be Ken Crawley. And I don't see any reason whatsoever why he won't continue to rise to the occasion. I was reading a report from someone today that said he's continuing to astonish people at camp this year as he did the past 2 years.
Well, and then you look at the guys they brought in. We already mentioned Arthur Millette from last year, but you look at that guy Jameson, who he was a safety corner, and they're gonna try and transition him into being a corner. That's somebody that they got to press on for a solidified nickelback position. So a guy like PJ Williams is really facing uphill battle. We can actually sit there and say change. I don't know how long. Since 2011, if not 2009. It seems we get our cornerbacks go through the plague, and we're down to signing guys, the Sterling Moores, those kind of guys, or we're starting drafted free agents, Devontae Harris or someone like that. You now have a legitimate battle for starting jobs, and you have guys who can come in as a nickel and dime guy, and if you have an injury, you don't fall off the face of the earth. You have guys in there who seem to be able to play at a Pro Bowl level, but play at an NFL level, not a glorified college level. That's I really John.
Okay, we're back now.
Okay, that's happening. That I'm freezing.
I want to apologize to everyone and thank you for sticking in there with us. And one thing I forgot when I was we were doing our paying the bills at the beginning, I forgot to pay the sponsor. We want to thank Fan First Productions for sponsoring our show, as always. Are there anything else significant to come out of the first day of OTAs, Alan?
Jordan's girlfriend had a baby. They didn't say his wife; it said his girlfriend. So I don't know. So he wasn't there today. We've got the bit of scary news, I guess, but it's not much. Marcus Davenport's got to have surgery on his thumb, but he's still a lot of speed. He's looked very impressive, according to the media and OTAs, and he probably is going to look very good in camp. He should be totally healthy by camp because, again, it's a 6-week injury, and guess what? 6 weeks from now is the first days of training camp. So
funny how that works.
There we go. They got a lot of guys working off by themselves. It's shorts and helmets, so there's no contact. So you're just seeing a lot of speed out there, right? Skill guys to shine. You're not. When the pads go on, that's when you can make your judgments on the offensive lineman, on the defensive lineman. Right now, it's really the passing drills are what looks fun to watch. That's all you really in these glorified.
We good?
Is it still going? Are you hearing me? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm worried every time that I'm freezing in mid-sentence and you're just looking at like dead silence. I'm like, that kind of thing. So.
I don't know about it. I don't know. I'm at the end of my rope here. But there's a lot of people that say that's the best place for me. That's okay. We're not everybody's cup of tea, but we're still rocking and rolling 2 years later. We want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. As I said earlier, you can subscribe to our show on iTunes and on YouTube, and follow us on Facebook, Under the Dome Podcast. And we want to thank John Pinto, Joel Smith. Who am I leaving out, Alan?
You got them?
Oh, wait a minute. We haven't mentioned. Yeah, I mentioned Bob Rose's name earlier this week. We have a Bob Rose quota every week that we have to meet.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
If we don't mention his name enough times, he won't come back. So,
there you go.
And we want to invite everyone.
One last thing before we sign off. One last thing before we go off. One thing we did. The quarterback battle for we said this. Thing looks, but now he's kind of on free agent. His right read. Remember to do all the things he needs to do. I don't know. The quarterback is going to see it right. So at least a real powerful quarterback of the future. It's too much. They have good passes. Because he has the experience. You know, he knows, even if he can't remember the verb he's seen defensively, he understands the concepts. So he is going to make better, more accurate throws. Whether he's up swimming, you know, they haven't seen enough defenses, especially at the NFL level, to make the right throws or to manipulate a receiver to get the ball. And that's where you are at this point. It's not a commentary on whether or not a guy is good or bad of playing the NFL, the quarterback position at the NFL level. And, you know, anything else is just an exercise in futility to try and handicap a quarterback race for the number 2 guy at this point of the season. It just can't be done.
I agree. Right back to where we started. Taysom Hill is not Drew Brees' successor. How many times, how many different ways do we have to break this down for y'all? Trust us. We're old people with opinions that are pretty close to the mark usually. Trust us. Is it too far to say we know what we're talking about? Well, it's our show. We know what we're talking about. Trust us.
Yeah.
We're not going to lie to you.
No. I promise you this is what's going to happen. In the preseason, either Hill or is going to have a John Forcade moment where he pulls a play out of his ass and has this incredible run or incredible pass or some kind of, and hey, I fell for it too. I admit it. In 1989, those last 3 games of the season, John Forcade started. I'm like, hell yeah, we got ourselves a quarterback. And that first
John
game,
Forcade was my favorite Saints quarterback until Drew Brees came.
Well, that first game in 1990 against the 49ers showed me that, no, hold it. He is not what I thought he was, or he is what he is what they thought he was. And that'll happen. I promise you. Save the tape. Mark the tape at this moment. I am calling in preseason. One of those two guys is going to make some kind of play where he pulls it out of his ass in the preseason in the third or fourth quarter, and people are going to be like, "There's our guy. There he is, right there. That's our quarterback of the future." And just remember, number 11, circa 1989, early first 4 games of the 1990 season, John Fourcade, it's fool's gold. It's not what you think you saw.
We want to invite everyone to be back with us again next week. And also we want to have you guys aware and invite you on behalf of our unofficial third member that we've been speaking of, Bob Rose, to join him on Bayou Blitz tomorrow night in the same time slot that we're in. Tomorrow night, his guest is going to be Max Stevens, former NFL linebacker, I think. Anyway, his son is a member of the Saints team at this point. Lyndon Stevens was his guest a few weeks ago. So we invite you guys to join our partner in crime in what he's trying to do. Did we leave anything out?
I don't think we left anything out. I think we actually covered everything we wanted to talk about today, which was actually impressive. And we stayed within our time limit for a change. I don't know if that
was an accident.
Yeah, I think that's because we kept freezing. And for the life of me,
does the timer still run when the
I don't know. I don't know. I tell you what, and it's driving me crazy because my internet connection is fine. I even rebooted it right before we came on the air to make sure we wouldn't have these problems. It's got to be the format we're using. It's frustrating as anything. It really is. I'm trying my best to fix this thing because I want the show to for everybody because we have a lot of fun talking. I know you guys like watching, but it's no fun to watch this if we freeze in mid-sentence and then you just have problems, and that ain't cool. That ain't cool at all. So we're working to try and fix these issues.
We'll get it fixed.
Yes, we will.
We've been down this road before. We'll get it worked out.
Yep, absolutely. And to join us tonight, thank you for being patient with us. If anything I said or anything that Sean said that actually made it through, that you agree, disagree with, whatever you think, shoot us a message on Facebook, comment on our Under the Dome Facebook page, and just let us know if there's any questions you want to ask us. You want us to talk about this, rather than tell stories about and the Giants and John Madden. You want to talk about old football, old Saints football. More than happy to talk about that. That's something we can do. Maybe we should start doing that in the 6 weeks.
I'm gonna figure out something in the next 4 to 6 weeks where we have no camp. I have a few things that I'm efforting towards as far as planning for us to do, but I'm going to figure out a way for us to work in some more historical stuff because I always hear from people how much they enjoy that.
Now, there's certain things that people I know probably want to know. Why couldn't we win a playoff game under Jim Moore? What happened in 2001 that the season we didn't get back to the playoffs? What happened in 1980 for us to go 1-15? What happened in the Bum Phillips era? Yeah. Well, it was more than we sucked. I mean, it was, Eric Clapton's favorite subject, cocaine, was part of it. And then there were some other mistakes they made in the front office that really undermined Dick Nolan's regime, and all that came to a head in 1980. Because 79, you were 8-8, and you were really a meltdown on Monday Night Football against the Oakland Raiders, and possibly making would have been something, but everything came to a head in 1980, and that's what really and some of it involves the Rams, and I can get to the history of the Rams and Rams. It's incredible where the Rams ownership and the Colts ownership basically swapped. The Ursays used to own the Rams, and the Rosenblums owned the Colts, and they basically swapped franchises, and no one said anything. They just said, "Oh, that's fine, whatever. That's good. No taxes paid. No, that's all good." No, well, the Ursays, of course, 3 years later. Well, I'm going from years later. Move the franchise. Indians more. You uprooted an incredibly loyal franchise, moved them to Indianapolis. Meanwhile, Carol Rosenblum drowns in 1979, and he had a relationship with John Meekum, the then owner of the Saints. And he asked John, if something ever happens to me, take care of my son Steve. Well, when he drowns, Cal Rosenblum drowns, Georgia Fontiera, who you might remember as the Rams owner during the Super Bowl run and the whole time they were in St. Louis and everything else, Georgia Fontiera, first thing she does is fire her son, Steve. Well, John Meekum hires Steve as his general manager. Problem was, Dick Nolan was a general manager. So, and his contract was written in such a way that the only way Steve could have a job is if John Meekum fired Dick Nolan, which he didn't do. Basically, he said, behind the scenes, "Hey, Dick, I'll give you a raise, but give Steve some of your power so he has something to do." And that division in the front office was a problem that would carry over throughout the entire 1980 season, and all the roster moves they made, the internal turmoil. No one knew who really was in charge because Dick Nolan would pass off to Steve, and Steve's like, "Hey, man, I'm not in charge of this. That's the coach's problem." So, that was a lot of the problems in 1980. So it makes for an interesting story about the 1980 Saints. And we could go into that one year, just that whole sordid, dark history where, if you think you've seen some bad Saints games, you haven't seen a bad Saints game till you've watched some of those 1980 games. They were horrid.
Snatch defeat from the jaws of victory on a weekly basis.
That happened in the first 4 games. After that, it was pretty much, it's time for your daily ass kicking, Saints. I sat through a St. Louis Cardinals Saints game where we lost 40-7 in the Dome. I think that was week 5, the week after they traded trades. We had 7 yards rushing. 7 yards rushing that day. It was a horrible game. Horrible. I wanted to leave at halftime. I couldn't take it. My dad made me sit through the whole damn thing.
All right, we got to get out of here, man.
I was just out of yards going from the terrace level to the street level, going down that little ramps. They got the ramps in the dome, inside the dome.
Yeah.
Back then they were carpet. And my brother and I, we came to the wall and head off the no end. Because you've been in the gene, you know how those walls and stuff like that. Oh, you know, you're running. My brother and I, somebody would get in the inside, so you just start pushing them towards the outside, so they, bam, hit that wall. Then you come down, and then they got people trying to walk down this thing, and my idiot brother and I we made it out alive. Anyway, thank you.
Poor Danny.
Yeah, poor Danny. Yeah. Oh man, that kid.
I'm gonna have to sneak Danny in so he can have a little bit of equal time.
Good. We should invite them. You know, he can tell the stories about his evil older brother. He would enjoy that. You know, the evil older brother.
All right. Well,
anyway.
Thank you guys for joining us. We love you. We hope to hear
from you.
Guys,
just sticking with. Catch you next time on another exciting episode of Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.